all set up? Okay. It's important that all throughout this entire state that every county, every region has a voice and representation in our state capital. There's some issues that all New Yorkers care about no matter where you are. There are other issues that are important based off of where you live. There are some concerns that are specific to Rochester that might not be as much of a priority 100 miles east. We are now past Labor Day, and there's a governor's race, an important race to determine the direction of the state, and still, Governor Kathy Hochul has not yet agreed to a single debate request that she's been sent. Now's the time. Name the place. When are we doing this? Where? I have an idea. How about the Kodak Theater in Rochester? How about we have a debate right here? We saw it during the primary just a couple of months ago. The Kodak Theater was a great location, and we had residents not just from Rochester and the surrounding communities of this county, but even neighboring counties all coming here to participate in this process. There's an important election coming up, and people have to decide who they want to vote for, and there are issues that are being asked of us where our position is, because the people of New York, the voters, need to know where we stand. And regardless of whether you're for or against a particular policy proposal, you owe it to the voters to let them know where you stand before the election. I believe that we should overhaul cashless bail in this state. I believe that judges should have discretion to weigh dangerousness and flight risk and past criminal record and seriousness of the offense on far more offenses. Kathy Hochul is basically saying that you have to elect her to find out where she may stand on the issue in January. Yesterday there was a meeting with the Farm Laborers Wage Board, and they issued a recommendation that the overtime threshold get reduced from 60 hours a week to 40 hours a week. Now, I happen to be opposed to this move. We've heard it from the farmers, the impacts on the cost of goods, farms that will have to close down, workers that will go to other states, the reality that so many workers come here because they want to make money and they want to work long hours. Where does Kathy Hochul stand? Where was her voice during this entire process leading up to yesterday's vote? From issue after issue, this governor has been AWOL. Now, I'm serving Congress, where down in D.C., you have this theory that people who are in charge have said from time to time that you have to pass a bill to find out what's in it. On this race for governor, Kathy Hochul is essentially saying you have to elect her to find out where she stands on all these very important issues. Now, I propose at least 5 debates. The first 2 debate requests that came in, one was from CBS 2 in New York City, and one was from Pix 11 in New York City, and I accepted both of those requests, and both of those stations have partnerships all throughout the entire state. I believe that there should be at least 2 debates in that New York City media market, at least 1 debate inside of the Capital Region media market. There should be at least 1 debate in the Rochester or Buffalo media market, and at least 1 debate in the rest of the media markets, and I would be happy to debate Kathy Hochul in every media market. And these have to happen now. We're about to get into the start of absentee balloting. We are close to the start of early voting. And if Kathy Hochul thinks that she's going to be able to agree to some debate about 5 minutes before the election, it may or may not even be on TV after absentee voting has started and early voting has started, and maybe she tries to get away with just doing 1 debate, well, that is entirely the wrong answer. What we need, what we owe the people of New York, is to have at least 5 debates and to start them now. Now, when you reach out, and I appreciate the members of the media who are here, When you reach out to Governor Hochul, she's going to give you a canned response. She's going to say that she is willing to do a debate. When? Where? How many? These are your follow-up questions when she gives you that canned response. She's been using this same response now for weeks. It's time to get these on the books and to start taking place. The people of Rochester deserve to have their voice and representation in this state capitol. We have 213 legislators. The way government works, it's 3 persons in a room. Even the members of the legislature, they don't even know what that budget's going to look like. They don't get to read it before they actually vote on it. The budget gets flopped down on their desk. Oftentimes it's in the middle of the night, and as it's hitting their desk, they're calling a vote on it. Time and again, we're seeing this secretive government that lacks transparency. Let's deliver people a democratic process that New Yorkers can be proud of, one where they can even attend in person. We can fill up all the seats at the Kodak Theater here in Rochester. So that's why we are here today. I was just in Rochester a few days ago. We were in front of a Tops gas station where there was a recent smash and grab. We're seeing all sorts of different highs in all the wrong areas related to crime, specifically here in Rochester. I put on my website, zeldinfornewyork.com/secure our streets. Our plan to secure New York streets, to take back our streets, to support our men and women in law enforcement, make sure district attorneys are actually doing their job, to overhaul the parole board, to stop passing pro-criminal laws to make New Yorkers feel safe again. Lastly, I'll end with this. When you get a chance to ask Kathy Hochul a question, if you're able to try this one out on her, I think it would be helpful for all New Yorkers to hear her answer. New York leads the entire nation in population loss because. Ask Kathy Hochul to finish that sentence. The people who watch your station, they know the answer to it. I know the answer to it. New York leads the whole nation in population loss because New Yorkers are hitting their breaking point in the state. They feel like their wallet, their safety, their freedom, their quality of their kids' education are under attack. They believe that if they go to some other state, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, elsewhere, that the money they have will go further, they will feel safer, they will live life freer. That's why New York leads the entire nation in population loss. I'd love to hear Kathy Hochul's answer to you on that one. I'd love to hear her answer to that question here on the debate stage at the Kodak Theater in Rochester. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
How do you get population back with your vote?
Well, simply, part of this is the theory, the approach to government, that the attacks on wallets, on safety, on freedom, on the quality of education have to be reversed. There are people who don't feel safe in New York. So if it's a district attorney who's refusing to enforce the law, like we see in Manhattan with the district attorney Alvin Bragg, you have some lax judges putting people back out on the street, even when some prosecutors are asking for bail. And that's how you end up with the Goldman Sachs employee who was shot in one county, or we all read about the Times Square slasher. These were released by judges where the prosecutor was asking for bail. Our corrections officers are being assaulted. Our prison staff being assaulted. It's skyrocketing right now. The numbers in the second quarter of this year, since the April 1st implementation of the HALT Act, have been drastically on the rise. The assaults on inmates are on the rise. How do you reverse it? I believe that we should repeal the HALT Act. I believe that we should repeal cashless bail, that we should amend to raise the age, that we should be rolling back the discovery law reforms that are tying the hands of law enforcement. I do believe we should overhaul the parole board and change it from a majority vote to a unanimous vote to provide for more victims' rights. If people are telling us that they do not feel safe on our streets, well, there are a couple dozen ideas that I have on how to make our streets safer at our website, zeldinfornewyork.com/secure our streets. We have to cut taxes across the board in this state. We have to bring spending under control. It's gone up by tens of billions of dollars. There should be a an annual spending cap with the budget process. We should reverse the state's ban on the safe extraction of natural gas. The Southern Tier wants it. There are some other counties that want it. They want to be able to tap into this resource named after two shales with New York names. Kathy Hochul says that this lifelong New Yorker, born and raised. I've lived in New York my whole life. The only 4 years I wasn't here was for 4 years I served on active duty in the Army. Because I'm challenging her in this race. Because of my views, she says. She demands that I get on a bus and I move to Florida. She has declared that I'm no longer a New Yorker. And there are millions of other New Yorkers who agree with me on all these different policy proposals I just said. There are millions of other New Yorkers who feel the same exact way that I do. Are they no longer New Yorkers? Are they supposed to get on a bus and all head down to Florida? I want to be the governor for all New Yorkers. Whether you vote for me or not, that's my job. Kathy Hochul, as governor of the state of New York, should be trying to be the governor for all New Yorkers, but instead, if you challenge her, you are no longer a New Yorker and you have to leave this state. The governor continues to extend these COVID emergency declarations every 30 days. That needs to stop. With that power, she gives hundreds of millions of dollars worth of no-bid contracts to a family. She gave a no-bid contract to a family that donated $300,000 to her. Instead of selling out access to the state capitol, instead of calling New Yorkers to be the apostle of the governor, her words, not mine, I believe that instead we should be looking at the people that you're supposed to represent with respect. They're New Yorkers, they're voters, they are residents, they are not your apostles. The governor refers to herself as the mother of all of New York's 62 counties. I would never think that in my head, let alone say that out loud. As governor of the state of New York, I would not be giving a speech in front of the Association of Counties and calling myself the father of all of New York's 62 counties. It's absurd. I would open up the budget process. People feel like they're not represented in government. They're not proud of this government. Instead of 3 persons in a room, every single legislator should have a seat at that table. We should be having open government where we are having the press conferences in front of the media when you're in crunch time of the budget. What's been agreed to, what hasn't, let people know so that these issues can start being debated and vetted. We should pass term limits. Kathy Hochul says she's in favor of it, but she hasn't actually gotten it done. She hasn't even tried. She says it's her position, but she doesn't do anything. All of this adds up to completely changing the culture and saving this state.
Biden's moving to cancel student debt. Your thoughts on that? And do you have any proposals for student?
Well, first off, as it relates to community colleges, State University of New York, City University of New York, we have to make sure that this is providing the highest quality education at the lowest possible cost. I went through the State University of New York system myself. I was happy with the quality of education that I received going through the SUNY system. There are other forms of education in this state and elsewhere outside of the state where it'll cost many tens of thousands of dollars a year more. And we have to make personal decisions in our lives. For me, when I was a senior in high school, I could have either went to the State University of New York at Albany. The tuition, I seem to remember, was somewhere around the mid-3,000s, not 30,000s, mid-3s. Or I could go to another university where at the time the tuition was somewhere in the mid-40s. And I decided to go to a state school. The state needs to ensure that it's the highest quality education inside of those schools at the lowest possible cost. As far as the president's proposal across this entire country to be canceling student loan debt, I have a few issues. One is we should have a conversation as to how we're going to pay for it. The idea that you're just going to keep promising, show up at University of Rochester. I could do it right now. I could leave here at the University of Rochester and say, listen, you vote for me. Free education, free housing, free health care. I'll give you a monthly stipend for a few $1,000s a month, and I'll give you all sorts of other free stuff. I could get a lot of votes, but I don't do it. It's not because of a lack of compassion. It's because the money has to come from somewhere. And by the way, what about the people who don't end up going off to a college? They make a decision that they can't afford it. They have this theory that when you go there, you have to actually pay it. What about the person who had to work their way through college? What about the person who got through college and just finished paying off all of their student loan debt? There's a fairness issue here. There's a consistency issue in government that goes beyond that important conversation of, well, how are we going to pay for it? And as far as that decision to be made by that New York student of where to go to higher ed, I, as governor, while we have great colleges, we have great universities, and many cost a whole lot more, my job is to make sure that SUNY, CUNY, and community colleges are excelling at the lowest possible cost. And that is one of the very best ways that the state of New York can ensure that all New Yorkers can have access to a high quality education. And oh, by the way, there are kids who go through high school, they don't plan on going to college. There's a student right now in Rochester who's starting 9th or 10th grade, and they know that they do not want to go to college. I believe that in high school, they should get their hands on equipment. I believe that they should get the technical experience. They should be able to network with trades. When they graduate high school, that they should have a good paying job waiting for them the next day. I want people to students not just to view a high school diploma as a ticket to college. I want students to view a high school diploma as a ticket to a good paying job. So that's certainly part of this as well.
Final question.
The man who confronted you on the stage at VFW in Farrington, some veteran groups have called that he be released from federal custody, put to a mental health facility to be treated for his admitted alcohol problem. What would you say to that?
So first off, the judge in that case knows a million times more about the facts, what's been learned about him. I am not the person to be able to tell you everything about his story that his defense counsel is providing to the judge, and I'm sure that the judge is listening to that and asking questions. I don't know what all of the details are of what the U.S. Attorney's Office is telling the judge of what they've learned about this person. When I was in the state senate, I created a program called the Joseph P. Dwyer Veteran Peer Support Program. And it started in 4 counties in New York, and it spread to other counties all throughout this entire state. Monroe has an amazing veteran service agency. The Monroe County Veteran Service Agency is one of the very best in the state, one of the very best veteran service agencies in the country. I'll give a lot of credit. I'm a Republican, Democrat county executive. This isn't about partisanship. This is about doing the right thing for our veterans. What I have learned is that the veteran I was told actually that night that the veteran was drinking. I was told that the veteran had mental health issues. As far as what else has been learned over the course of the couple months since, I can't tell you everything that judge knows. But I will say this. I believe from my experience working with the Monroe County Veteran Service Agency that being able to connect this veteran with these other veterans, with this office that is filled with so much love, they have the support, they have the ability, they have the talent, the energy, the motivation to do something about it to help all veterans in need, that whether or not the veteran is getting assistance inside of where he is today or wherever he may be tomorrow, I believe that we need to connect this veteran to the max with this agency. I believe, by the way, that the Dwyer program should be expanded nationally. It's a peer-to-peer support program for veterans in need, veterans with the mental wounds of war, veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. This is something that has been a success, saving thousands of veteran lives in New York. There's a belief by some that when a veteran is in need, you should just medicate away their problem. That's the wrong answer. Having a peer-to-peer support model, it's an anonymous setting. There's a trained person in charge of that group. Going outside the box, unconventional ways of helping veterans. In one respect, maybe it's connecting that veteran with a wild horse, and they're training the horse, developing the bond. Maybe it's a companion animal. Maybe it's fly fishing. The list goes on of all sorts of unconventional ways. So while I am not an expert to be able to talk about David Jacobonis, I can say that my experience with the Dwyer program, my experience with the Monroe County Veteran Service Agency gives me high confidence that connecting them to the max will be something that greatly benefits the life of this veteran.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.